Homo sapiens have developed the abilities that exceeded those of other beings shaped by natural selection. Over so many millions of years in the history of Homo sapiens, we have faced so many problems, passed a majority of it, but also didn't find any answers to some problems. Like, for example, we cannot detect an earthquake. Now, one of the most recent example of some such kind of a disaster where so many people died will be the Wuhan virus pandemic. As a matter of fact, more than 65 lakh people died all around the world due to this pandemic. Now we know that it is 2022 and we have tried to move on from that pandemic and from that deadly period, and the world has moved on indeed. But before moving on, we must focus on one term and throw some light upon it because it has been really underrated all over the past years in this world and has recently got some value out of us after all. And that term is happiness. Now, reports show that there is a huge gap developing between the usually happy people and the sad people all over the world. And as a matter of fact, negative emotions and tensions are rising among human beings all around the world. As of speaking of India, in 2019, the suicide rates stood at about 10.4, but in 2020 it increased. It increased so much more that, as a matter of fact, the total number of people who died in India due to the coronavirus pandemic in 2020 was 1.48 lakh. And as compared to that, the people who died due to suicides in India stood at 1.5 lakh in 2020. And the number is more than that indeed. So we can infer from that that happiness is indeed a very important emotion that we as humans feel, and that is very important. The concept of happiness has been a hot topic since a really long time. Especially, it has been proved that studies upon happiness have been on since ancient Greek times, and that many ancient Greek philosophers have argued upon what happiness is according to them. Now, Democritus, who was one of the first philosophers from the Western world to examine what actually happiness is, theorized that happiness is not something which results from good luck or external circumstances. According to him, happiness was something which he explained it as a case of mind, which was thought to be as a very subjective view as to what happiness is. Now, before going any further, we must try to understand one term which has been used quite frequently by psychologists to explain happiness, and that is hedonism. Now, hedonism is a concept where happiness is thought to be the outcome of pursuit of pleasure over pain. And it was thought indeed in those ancient times that happiness is something which results only from pleasure, and that pleasure can be obtained from satisfying physical, intellectual, and social needs. Aristotle, who was a Greek philosopher, suggested that happiness is the sum of life's hedonic moments. Again, so Socrates and his student Plato disagreed with his view of what happiness is and put out a very objective view, saying that happiness is the secure enjoyment by one person, by one human being, of what is good and beautiful in this world. But Aristotle, who is a very well known Greek philosopher from that time, disagreed with the view and suggested and theorized that in order for one to achieve happiness and to lead a good life, one needs to live with good virtues, basically with some reason and morality. In today's world, it has become incredibly challenging and difficult to define what happiness actually is. Most modern philosophers suggest that happiness is people's evaluation of daily lives. But nowadays, somehow, subjective well being or the overall well being of a human being has been given importance. Most modern psychological researches show or prove that subjective well being is indeed a very important aspect for defining an individual's happiness. World Happiness Report suggests that happiness has remained stable all around the world despite the Wuhan virus pandemic of 2020. But reports have been suggesting that negative feelings and tension are rising all around the world. Adults are feeling more depressed, and the number of adolescents feeling depressed having suicidal ideation and self-harm is at all-time high. And most psychologists and philosophers are blaming technology for it. But is technology really the only cause for the unhappiness among us? Think about it for a moment. Technology has made our lives way more easier than it was before technology came. For example, nowadays we can make video calls to our friends, relatives, and family members at any time we want, at any place we are at that moment using our mobile phones and the internet. We can search various terms upon Google and Microsoft Edge and can gain loads and loads of valuable knowledge and store it on our brain. And that is because of the internet and technology we have today. It's not that people were always happy in earlier times or in times before technology came. Unhappiness has always prevailed in this world. Maybe the reason during those times were different, but now technology has made a huge impact upon human beings. Many reports around the world suggest that as a human, we have become way too much dependent upon technology and that it has impacted us in a very bad way because way too much dependency upon technology has led us to unhappiness and depression over the course of time. Especially for adolescents, lesser in person contact and more screen time has affected, leading them to unhappiness and depression. Many reports suggest that governments can be a huge source of unhappiness for people living in that country or state or whatsoever. It has been proved by various reports and survey results since 2005 that people are more satisfied and happy when they find their government or group of people ruling them put their focus more upon health and education rather than on army. An useful way for an individual to feel more happy and positive in life was to follow the PERMA model, which was put forward by Dr. Martin Seligman. Now, he is a major figure because he was responsible for shifting the focus of American Psychological Association from only mental illness and pathology to put more focus and study upon what is good and positive in life. Now, it has been proved and suggested by various reports and survey results that if an individual follows the PERMA model by Dr. Seligman, then he or she will feel more happy and it will also result in decrease in psychological distress as well. Now, the five components that make up the name of this model is P stands for positive emotion, E stands for engagement, M stands for meaning, R stands for relationships, and A lastly stands for accomplishment. There are many ways in which you can develop these characteristics listed in this PERMA model to stay happy. For example, practicing gratefulness can lead to building positive emotions, and also practicing living in the moment, in the present, can lead to increasing engagement as well. Now, research on engagement has shown that an individual who has tried to use their strengths in new ways each day, each week, has resulted in being more happy and less stressed after 6 months. Now, relationships are also very important for building positive emotions in our mind as well. Now, research has shown that celebrating success together or sharing good news with people that actually matter in life can help in building better relationships with them over the course of time. If we don't have any purpose in life, we feel empty from inside, right? So that is why M in the PERMA model stands for meaning. And research has shown and demonstrated that people having a sense of purpose in their life live longer, that is, have higher life expectation, greater life satisfaction, and also have or suffer from fewer health problems as well. A, which lastly stands for accomplishment, as we discussed in the PERMA model, can instill a sense of pride inside individuals. Now, it has been shown and demonstrated by research as well that achieving intrinsic goals, such as the various personal goals we set for ourselves daily, monthly, or even sometimes yearly, and building connections with as many people as possible can lead to larger gains in personal well being rather than achieving external success like money or fame. Now, what is the conclusion? We can see that though all the factors may be different and must be different for each and every person in this world, everyone right now at this moment is working and doing any other things they want for just one feeling, for one emotion, which is happiness. Though we may feel that all we need is money, indeed it is important in our life, and having a massive following in our social media handles, especially Instagram. Eventually, reports suggest, and people also, upon reaching an older age themselves, realize that having people by our side who love us despite our imperfections is one of the most important gems to be worth trying to keep in our life and is actually the real source of the real happiness. With that said, I'll see you in the next one.